Hey, hello, howdy, how you doing? Remember this game? Yeah, we've all seen the ungoodening of No Man's Sky. Now, I haven't played No Man's Sky in a few years, and even then, I don't even really remember what I did with it. Like, what the hell is this? The game has 27 achievements, and over the course of about 60 hours, I'd managed to accumulate 16 of those. Most of them are Duolingo-based and require traveling to different galaxies, a healthy dose of space racism, all accompanied by an overwhelming desire to colonize the unknown. All created by this guy. He's like Todd Howard, if Todd Howard knew what the fuck he was doing.
All of this just works.
Remember when Starfield was supposed to be the new No Man's Sky? Look at how that turned out. Speaking of No Man's Sky's 27 achievements, there was one that really stood out to me. To live forever requires you to reach the center of the galaxy in permadeath mode. It's something that only 0.8% of all players have completed, which is mind-boggling, especially when you consider the player count of the game over the past decade. See? Told you guys I was going to make a video on it. It only took like 4 months, but we're here. That's right. This is the story of how I completed all 27 achievements in No Man's Sky on permadeath mode. Quick note before we get started, I've never been one to progress the story in No Man's Sky. It never really interested me. I was always way more focused on the exploration aspect or messing around with a few friends. And while I do carry that mindset into this video early on, I promise that drastically changes by the end. This may be one of my favorite stories of all time. Also, I have a sponsor at this timestamp, so just a heads up. There are very few games where I am so excited to make a video on them that I actively cancel other projects to accommodate. No Man's Sky is one of those games. I just know that everyone waiting on the Valheim video is losing their shit right now. Okay, let's get started. Permadeath difficulty basically just takes the standard game mode, spits in your face, and cranks most aspects of the game up to 10. Survival difficulty is maxed out, damage taken is increased, fuel consumption is increased, inventory stack limits are restricted, and then there's the obvious delete the save on death mechanic that makes permadeath what it is. Hello old friend.
It's been 84 years.
We begin our journey on a toxic planet in the middle of nowhere. First things first, find sodium deposits to survive the storm. Good thing our scanner is Oh, okay, new first things first. Fix the scanner. It only requires ferrite dust, so after scraping together 75 of that, I was able to repair and activate my scanner, find some sodium, and begin repairing the hazard protection module. Next on the agenda, make my way towards a signal source in the distance, and investigate damaged machinery along the way. Yep, still got it. I honestly forgot about this ship. Glad to see it's still a flaming pile of ass like it was 10 years ago. So obviously, if you couldn't tell by the fire, everything is broken. To repair the pulse engine, I'll need a hermetic seal and metal plating. And for the launch thrusters, dihydrogen jelly and 50 pure ferrite, which is just ferrite dust refined into its next form. Oh, it's also worth noting that hazard protection will recharge while in your ship. So there doesn't need to be a constant grind for sodium like we're personal chefs for Amy Slayton. With some new objectives, it's time to set out yet again in search of ferrite dust to craft a metal plate. For the hermetic seal, I pulled a planetary chart from the wreckage and, after plotting a route, began making my way over to the marked coordinates. Of course, it only takes one poorly timed storm to really fuck up your day. This is just how brutal permadeath can be. Now thankfully, we were still on the starter planet, so starting fresh only meant about 10 minutes of backtracking. But it just goes to show how quickly you can lose everything at the will of a random planet in the middle of space. Anyway, welcome to round 2. It went exactly the same as the first round. I lost my ship while out in the storm and couldn't get back to it in time, and dead. Thankfully, on the third attempt, I had half a brain cell left to remind me to just sit and wait inside of the ship until the storm passed. While we wait that out, I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about our Lord and Savior, Factor Meals. We're in the middle of moving right now, and on top of it being one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life, it also means that I have almost no time to cook. But thankfully, instead of falling back on any other fast food brand, Factor Meals kicked in my door and threw their food in my face. And I gotta say, it's pretty good. Hell, even our spoiled Frenchie was excited to be a part of the hype. The meals are super easy to make. They come in these pre-packaged containers that look like this, and all you have to do is throw them in the microwave for 2 minutes and boom, you're done. They even sent a bunch of juices for us to try that my wife was scarily excited for. Now initially, I heard all of this and my mind immediately went to those banquet dinner meals that you eat and then wake up with a third arm or radioactive diabetes. But if that's the far end of the spectrum, Factor Meals is on a completely different wavelength. While other companies are busy packing 500% of your daily sodium content into a box and calling it edible, Factor Meals just released their healthiest menu yet, with over 80 weekly rotating meals to choose from, more than doubling the size of their original menu. On top of that, they offer a ton of variety with different meal plans and preferences, all developed by registered dietitians, such as high protein, keto-friendly, and GLP-1 balanced options. Not to mention the fact that all of these are nutritionally balanced and have correct portions, so you're not having to eyeball your macros and caloric intake, which is great if you're following a strict dietary regimen. Not a fan of one of the meals you picked? Well, you can also swap that out for no extra cost. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, to try it out for yourself, all you need to do is head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code PREDSFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a full year. That's code PREDSFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Imagine swapping out Eggo waffles and Pop-Tarts for something that'll actually fill you up for free. Thank you again to Factor Meals for sponsoring this video, and now, back to the space shenanigans. On my way over to the marked coordinates, I ended up finding a random space outpost, so I stopped in, looted the place, and introduced myself to the Gek hanging out there, only for him to rip ass after I pat him on the head. Moving on to the objective. Interacting with the crashed technology gives me a hermetic seal so that I can repair my starship. Checking out these station areas, I found a language database and even learned the Gek word for Gek. Next up, I need to find my ship again. To do that, I need a visor, and to install said visor, I need a bunch of carbon. Easy enough. Now that the engine has been repaired, I can focus on finding some dihydrogen jelly, which is just the blue crystals on the ground that can be crafted into jelly. And finally, it's time to craft a portable refiner. It costs 30 oxygen to make and requires carbon for fuel, but it's one of the more satisfying components of the early game for me. I just like watching the numbers go up. With the pure ferrite fully refined, I was able to repair the ship and finally get off the ground. Heading up into space prompts us to receive a message kicking off the Awakening's primary mission. I forgot how mysterious and convoluted this story is, so apologies in advance, I'm gonna butcher it. Anyway, after landing on Mustafar, I renamed and uploaded the planet into the Discoveries tab, which brings me to another point I'd like to cover. I distinctly remember scanning and uploading all the fauna and stones and everything and making hundreds of thousands of credits off of it after making a ton of upgrades to the multi-tool. So I'm really excited to get back to that and try it out again. Speaking of the scanner, there's a target sweep module that I use to locate the cache emitting the mysterious signal. Finding the hardware gives me the blueprints to unlock a base computer and terrain manipulator. With the terrain manipulator, I can now mine resources like copper and phosphorus and all that fun stuff, which can then be used to make chromatic metal in order to craft a base computer. With said base computer, I can claim a base, giving me my first achievement in the game, Cradle. It's been completed by 73% of the player base, which means 27% of all players just, haven't made it like an hour into the game. Crazy. So the base building in this game is incredible. I love it so much. But there aren't any real achievements tied to it. Like, there's one, but it's more of an achievement that's loosely tied into base building, so I'll cover it more later on. But if you're looking for a massive base building expedition, sorry, this is kind of the best you get. This alone took almost 1,000 carbon. I promise I'll build something better later on, I think, but considering the entire planet is completely torched, probably not the best place for me to settle down. On the bright side, you do recover hazmat protection while inside a closed building, so that'll come in handy. This next portion used to serve as an intro to base building, and it's where I used to get completely lost in the game. Essentially, you need to grab construction research, but to create it, you need magnetized ferrite, which means it's back to refining more shit. To unlock all of these styles and usable items, you need to find buried technology. It looks like that. So here's where I'd get trapped into hunting buried technology for dozens of hours, mainly because that's what the game wants you to do. Seriously, like, the main objective is to keep finding data and then using that data to unlock more components. With said technology, though, I crafted a portal, a signal booster, and a biofuel reactor. You can throw carbon in it and then connect a few cables, and boom, power. With an active portal and the concepts of a base planted in the ground, it's time to head out to the stars and find the space station in the area. These space stations are about to become my favorite places in the game, mainly because you can go around and talk to all of the aliens hanging out there, which is incredibly useful for learning their languages. After repeating the number 16 to a bunch of them to complete the main quest, of course. On top of all the dialogue help, there's also stations where you can upgrade your exosuit storage and install modules that increase your shields, provide specific protections, and increase movement speed or life support capacity. I don't really need any of that right now though, since I only have 99 nanites and I'm only really focused on A or S tier upgrades, which are all like 400 to 700 apiece. The same goes for the multi-tool upgrades and modules, but again, I'll save those for when I have a better tool, not the starting one. The other important piece of space stations is the Galactic Trade Station. Each system has a specification assigned to it. In this instance, we are in the Qui-Gon Jinn system, which is a prospecting economy with adequate wealth. Adequate falls into the medium wealth type. There's a shit ton of them, like almost 30 different economy types split into 3 wealth categories, so I'll do my best to point those out when we find a high wealth area. Since this is a prospecting system, we can make the most money by mining up the resources and then selling them in an industrial or manufacturing system. It's not super important to me at the moment, but it's something to at least keep an eye out for. You can also just go by the demand percentage on the screen. The higher the demand, the higher the price. It's also outlined in green to let you know when something is a good deal for both purchasing and selling items. Since I don't really plan on doing much else with a base at the moment, I sold the data packs I'd collected for over 100k earning me the Foundation achievement for attaining the Entrepreneur status in most units accrued, which is 150,000 credits. Honestly, there's so many datasets to track in the Discoveries and Milestones tab, like pirates killed, surviving extreme weather, distance traveled, and while most of them have achievements associated with them, there are tons that don't, and I wish there were, because I love data in games, and it's just so interesting to me. Take that with a grain of salt though, I just love the grind of this game. Okay, one more thing. I don't know when it was added, but the Starship Fabricator is quite possibly the greatest addition to No Man's Sky. Basically, you can now create your own ships, which is why you're seeing all those TikToks of people flying around in the Millennium Falcon, or the Slave One. It's such a perfect quality of life addition to the game, and I can't wait to mess around with it more later on. For now though, I'm just embracing the life of a lowly space peasant in way over his head. And as a lowly space peasant, it's my job to embrace the drip. Okay, back to the base to decode the 16 signal. Is that what people on acid see all the time? Oh my god. Decoding the message gives me more coordinates that would take about 30 minutes to walk to. Or I can teleport back to the space station and fly there in like 30 seconds. Oh no. Is the woman pilot okay? See that blue circle thing over there? Well, you can land and launch from those zones without consuming thruster fuel, which is great for me because, remember, poor. Interacting with the crashed freighter's terminal gives me a hyperdrive blueprint, so I got started working on that to finally get out of this system. And by that, I mean I looted some of the cargo pods from the crashed freighter, walking away with hundreds of thousands of credits worth of technology and minerals. With that gear, I can purchase the 5 microprocessors needed to craft a hyperdrive thruster. So at this point, I had a run-ending scare. See, I ran out of oxygen. Not a problem when you're in your ship or at a space station, but the moment I step out, I take damage. And given that I take double the damage, I'm one fuck up from death. So instead of hopping out of the ship, I just patrolled at the slowest allowable speed in search of one of those flytrap plants so I could gun it down without having to leave the comfort of my oxygen-rich fighter. This ended up taking like 30 minutes for just a few molecules, but at least it's better than starting over, right? With the oxygen secured, I returned to the space station to finish building a hyperdrive. Now, to find some fuel. Since I already have the antimatter housing from the crashed freighter, all I'm missing is the regular antimatter. But before I make my way over, it's time to take on a fugitive starship. Why? Because space combat is one of my favorite things about No Man's Sky. At least from what I remember. This fight was incredibly easy as well, because the fugitive never fought back. So I kinda just steamrolled him, walking away with 100k in credits and boosted relations with the Gex. And with that, it's back to the antimatter. Upon touching down in Alaska, I found some oxygen to keep life support active, and immediately abandoned the antimatter quest for an old pastime. Larval core eggs. Selling at a whopping 70k a piece. You just gotta deal with some off-brand xenomorphs. After collecting 15 eggs, I tossed them in the starship before realizing the place I needed to be was directly underneath me. So the recipe for antimatter is 25 chromatic metal and 20 condensed carbon. Easy enough. Let's get to it. With the hyperdrive fuel crafted, I went back to the space station and sold all of the larval core eggs for over 1 million credits, earning me the Space Merchant achievement by attaining trader status in most units accrued, which would be 1 million credits. Alright, time for hyperdrive. Another Gex system, but the threat level is low, so I'll take it. For now, the plan is to continue following the Awakenings questline, because if I remember correctly, I'm gonna need to use some special shit that I can only unlock by progressing this main quest. All of this to say, welcome to, whatever this thing is. A monolith? I think. Fun fact, these little cylinder things are used to learn words on the dominant species language from the system. So it's a great way to continue developing my proficiency of different ways to say Gek. Speaking with the monolith earns me the hyperdrive fuel and sends me back to the galaxy map to find another space station. Before leaving this system, though, I stopped at the space station to learn some more Gek words, earning me both the Contact and Babel 17 achievement for attaining the Known status in alien colonist encounters, and Confused status in words collected. Contact requires me to converse with 10 different aliens, while Babel 17 requires me to learn 10 words. These don't need to be race-specific, but personally, I think it'd be pretty cool to learn an entire alien language throughout the playthrough. And finally, after purchasing 3 emergency cartographic planetary charts, a fucking mouthful, I left the system. Welcome to the first Korvax-controlled system of the playthrough. The conflict level here is unstable, but so is the Middle East and that still exists, so I figured I'd be fine. The Awakening quest continued here as well, and if I remember correctly, the dude I'm talking to died like thousands of years ago or something. Listen, I have no idea the premise of the story, so if anyone would be so inclined, I would very much appreciate it if anyone would just give me like a quick TLDR of the story, because I've always been confused by it. Like, I know Artemis is the ghost we're hunting for, but that's about it. Howdy, post-editing TGP here. I'm an idiot. Don't listen to anything I have to say within the first 10 to 20 minutes of this video regarding the story. I promise I get very invested in it later on, but during this first portion, I was so focused on just hunting achievements that I couldn't be bothered to just pay attention to the story. But I promise that changes later on. Alright, carry on. On the bright side, I did manage to find an A-class shuttle worth about 9 million credits. Unfortunately, it's completely destroyed, so I'll probably just hang on to it and sell it in the future, or try to trade it for something better. Or, maybe I'll fix it up, considering I'm stuck here and can't summon my fighter. I did manage to find a distress beacon 4 hours away, so maybe there's a better ship out there, but there's only one way to find out. We don't need the whole thing repaired, right? Just the thrusters. Oh, what the fuck? This is the same thing. Whatever, just another added to the arsenal. As I left the planet's atmosphere, I was greeted with the Death Star warping right in front of me. The Space Anomaly is like a giant hub for No Man's Sky. Not that one, shut up. You can cash in nanites here for special upgrades to your gear and ships. It's just a really cool place to explore and show off some of your more exotic starships. It's also where you go to take on daily and weekly missions for Quicksilver, cash and expedition rewards, and find new blueprints. The best part about it, for me, is the fact that I can freely swap out ships here, and call in my fighter. Oh, and there's this guy Helios, who you can upload your planetary data to for hundreds of nanites. There is one major benefit that I'll be using the anomaly for, and that's black holes, but they aren't super important at the moment, so we'll talk more about them in like an hour. Hello, post-editing TGP here again. This never comes up for the rest of the playthrough. I don't use a single I don't know what I was doing. I didn't use a single black hole this entire playthrough. Okay, back in. To find Artemis, I need a long-distance transmitter. That'll have to wait a moment, though. We've got more pirates.
Hostile ships approaching. Ships defeated.
Okay. Let's go activate a comms tower. There's our boy, or alien. So according to Artemis, I'll need to build a signal booster across the system to help triangulate where he is. Fun fact though, you only need one, and I already built it, so you can just carry it with you. Place the signal booster down, triangulate the position, and then pick it back up without resetting progress. The second location was actually just a drop pod with an exosuit upgrade module, which was pretty dope. Alright, perfect. Time to head back and... never mind. With all the eggs secured, I solved a riddle and located a new signal on the map before heading back off into the stars. So Artemis sends over his coordinates, and I'm now told to craft a translator which requires 100 copper and a microprocessor. Before I do that though, it's time to board the Death Star and see what Nada has to say. They explain that they knew Artemis and that they used to be a traveler just like us, but have since forgotten who Nada was. This leads us to the black hole concept. Polo holds keys to track coordinates of black holes, which we can then use for the final push to the center of the galaxy. That way, I'm not sitting here for hundreds of hours performing jump after jump, and instead can rip off tens of thousands of light years by diving through a single black hole. Until then, my job is to craft the Artemis translator, and then talk to more aliens to calibrate the damn thing. Oh, and remember those larval eggs? Well, selling those earned me the Diamond Age achievement for earning 2 million credits. This is the final achievement associated with earning money, though. Before continuing the Artemis quest, I went through all of my discoveries and uploaded all of my data for some more nanites, which I then used to purchase my first exosuit upgrade. This one provides a 94% increase to support tanks and 42% for solar panel power. Additionally, all these upgrades can be linked together in sets of 3 to stack their boosts, so all future life support pieces will go in a line here. Back to the Artemis quest. There are specific alien life forms for you to speak with that can be found by scanning for them out in space. It's a really easy quest to wrap up, but it's a bit tedious having to constantly find one alien, land, talk to them, burn fuel to launch again, go back up, and repeat the process 2 more times. On the bright side, all of these aliens count towards the achievement for meeting and learning words from other aliens. Fun fact, you can't perform target sweeps in the middle of storms, but considering this is an extreme condition planet, and I have to spend a total of around 10 hours outside of a ship or building here to earn achievements, I don't mind it. I'm basically just cosplaying as the space version of the Outdoor Boys for an entire recording day, so that'll be fun. I'll worry about that another time though. For now, I just want to focus on other shit. Remember that ancient location I found a while back? Well, guess what's got 2 knowledge stones sitting there, waiting for me to activate them. Now I need to increase my standing with alien life forms. It doesn't say how much to increase the standing by, but I'm kinda over the Korvax system, so instead of talking to them some more, I tried warping to another Gek-controlled system instead, only to be told that it's the Korvax race who I need to boost relations with. So, welcome to the mission board. You can find these in space stations in every star system. Think of them like petty quests. They also provide some really solid rewards, such as 100k credits, nanites, and upgrade charts. Only one of these gives +1 to Korvax standing, but there are 2 kill creature quests that are super easy, so I just threw those on as well. Oh, for fuck's sake. I will say, I know it's old and everyone knows all the puzzles by now, but I do really appreciate the tiny little puzzles to solve in order to find distress beacons. So I need to kill 11 creatures and take a picture or something. Easy enough. But to accomplish that, I'm going to work on getting my steps in, considering I have 2 achievements directly tied to walking around planets. Figure it's just a decent way to still make progress on achievements without making it the sole focus. Turns out, though, Sentinels, basically the space police, don't like it when you commit small acts of alien genocide. But thankfully, I've played GTA before, so I know how to deal with these guys. Now, according to the achievements page, I should have received an achievement for killing Sentinels, but I haven't unlocked any of them yet, despite killing 10, which I thought was weird. It's also worth noting that the Sentinels, at least in this area, appear to be bugged. There's no way for me to lose them, despite flying to entirely separate planets, hiding inside, or burying myself underground. The only way I've been able to dodge them is by reloading a restore point after jumping in and out of my starfighter. Actually, I might just be an idiot. I think it might just be ships destroyed and not Sentinels. I don't know though, I'll keep you all updated as I figure this out because this achievement is very vague. On top of that, turns out the photo missions are super buggy, and even back in 2022, most players were struggling with them. So I just abandoned it entirely and made my way back to the space station to turn in the animal hunting quests. As a little break from trying to boost relations with the Korvax, I took a few minutes to plot routes to and track down those exosuit upgrades I'd gotten as rewards. So I'm still getting the journey milestones for killing Sentinels, but I never got an achievement for killing any. Okay, so I looked into it some more. You don't have to kill Sentinels to get the use of weapons, patter for conquest, or the Forever War achievements. Those are just ships out in space. So random aliens, pirates, or Sentinel ships, all of those would count, but not just Sentinels. That's what I get for basing my entire plan on an outdated Steam guide. Anyway, while clearing out my inventory, I noticed I had a spare Corvax casing, so I offered it to one of the aliens aboard the space station, allowing me to boost my relations with the entire race and subsequently complete the next objective in the Artemis questline. With my standing increased, I returned to the research entity, who told me that Artemis's location doesn't exist on a charted map. After relaying this information to Artemis, he tells me that the stars have shifted since he made the chart, and that he actually found this place by going through a portal. I try to get more information from him, but it only ends up with the frequency for Apollo. Now I have absolutely no clue what that means, so I summoned the Death Star again and brought the news back to Nada. Nada has no fucking clue either, but they did unlock the Ghosts in the Machine questline to find and activate a Holo-terminus. Immediately after warping to my next system, I scanned a moon and found said Holo-terminus, so that was neat. Oh no, he's an automaton. Even worse, he's like a Reddit-branded automaton. Thankfully, his demeanor changes when I tell him that Artemis can't beat Portal 2. He tells me that I'll need to expand my base of operations and gives me info on a contact to meet up with. But before I do that, I wanted to check another item off the to-do list. See, there are 3 achievements centered around documenting all of the fauna on a planet. The final achievement requires full clearing 10 planets, and, well, I haven't completed one yet, so I'd like to change that, after purchasing yet another life support module. Okay, now it's time to go finish off the fauna scans. God, this game is just so gorgeous. Once all 10 fauna had been scanned in, I uploaded the data in the Discoveries tab, earning me 2,500 nanites and the A Scanner Darkly achievement. Outside of that, I killed another pirate, sold some more shit at the space station, and warped to Apollo's contact in a nearby system. Of course, the first thing I did here was purchase a movement upgrade module, increasing my jetpack tanks by over 200%. I also installed a black market oxygen module, only to find out it's hot garbage. I'll keep it for now though, since I don't have anything else, but as soon as I find another S tier, I'm dropping this. Now, since I was already here, I opted to spend a few minutes talking to all of the aliens aboard the space station, earning me the Languages of Poe for learning 50 words, and the Who Goes There achievement for meeting 50 unique aliens. As another quick break from the main quest line, I located a caustic planet and flew on over to it. Why this one specifically? Well, because of those things right there. This place is highly dangerous, but those ancient bones make everything worth it. Before getting to the bones, though, I scanned for the final exosuit upgrade that I had sitting in my inventory, and scanned a few of the fauna to hopefully check off another planet while continuing to stack nanites. I don't remember vigilant stones being a thing the last time I farmed bones, but that was also like 6 years ago, so things can obviously change in that time. Perfect example, this game. Okay, they definitely changed the bones. These used to be worth millions of credits. Here's my theory. The bones that aren't guarded by the vigilant stone warrior things aren't worth shit. But the bones under the Vigilant Stones are where the real money's at. Time to test a theory. Call me Hank Green. Yeah, the bones just suck now, don't they? I'll have to come back when I have a better multi-tool and see what happens when you kill the Guardians. On my way back to the Starfighter, the settlement I was at came under attack from a single pirate. Something I thought was really fucking cool, considering I've never experienced this in my dozens of hours of playing in the past. Blowing up the pirate ship earned me over 200k in credits and the use of weapons achievement for blowing up 5 starships. Before leaving this shithole of a planet, I did manage to check off all 7 animals, earning me a few more nanites and continuing to progress that achievement tree. Anyway, now that my plans to farm millions of credits have been ruined, I headed back to the space station and spoke to Apollo's contact, who sent me back to my first base at the initial starter system. So they want you to start adding companions to your base. But I don't want this as my primary base location, so I'm going to hold off on that for now, and instead begin hunting for a better planet to call home. Warping to another star system earned me the Stars Like Dust achievement for warping to 5 separate systems. But that's not all, because I finally rolled the random chance to rescue a freighter. For those of you who are newer to No Man's Sky, there's a chance for you to rescue a freighter under attack when you warp into a new system. Successfully defending the freighter will grant you said freighter. It's also just an excuse to partake in space combat, so I never pass them up. The battle to save the freighter was, rough, to say the least. I went into this way too cocky for someone flying a C-class fighter starship with no upgrades. Even though it felt like I was putting in work, I quickly found my ship falling apart, only barely managing to pull off a victory with the help of some other alien fighters.
Critical damage taken. Critical damage taken. Hostile ships deleted.
It may just be a C-class freighter flown by Gex, but it's my C-class freighter flown by Gex. We even have an exploration cruiser that can be sent out on missions at my request. To send cruisers out on expeditions, I needed to build a fleet command room, but as soon as that's done, we're free to send our cruiser wherever it wants. The one I settled on will take about an hour to complete, so we'll check back on that in a bit. In the meantime, there's repairs to be made, and a home to find. In the process of finding and mining some copper, I earned the Symphony for a Lost Traveler achievement for walking 40,000 units on foot.
Units received. Ground protection fully.
Unfortunately, there's more to repairing a starship than cramming metal into it. So after purchasing some microprocessors at the space station, I dropped 2 mil on a new multi-tool. Sure, it's a C-class rifle, but the damage output is over 1,000 points higher than the starter tool and has 20 plus tech slots, which I immediately got to work filling out with upgrades. I also went ahead and exchanged nav data for 10 planetary maps in order to continue hunting distress beacons for better ships, and spent over 1,000 nanites on movement and shield upgrades.
Received.
I'll need to play some Tetris with the tech tree later on when I get another movement or life support upgrade, but this'll do for now. In hopes of finding a safer system to settle down in, I ended up warping directly into a pirate-controlled area. Instead of a structured space station, you get this, and I love it. Mainly due to this guy, the Bounty Master. He offers more Sea of Thieves-styled missions, such as hunting and destroying other pirates, seizing goods from traders, and delivering illegal cargo. And some of these rewards are just insane. How about 400 tons of frigate fuel, or over 250,000 units and a warp hypercore? Oh, and remember all those junked ships that I'd added to my fleet? Well, you can scrap them here for millions of credits and spare parts. After finding 2 of the same ship, I warped yet again to continue the hunt for an actual starfighter. What I found were a shit ton of freighter wrecks. At least I got a multi-tool upgrade, though. My god. Even on the off chance I could find a distress signal, it was usually accompanied by an alien waiting to be rescued. So after 10 failed chances to find a single ship in this system, I dug for some ship components, stole some more larval eggs, and warped to a new system yet again. This one is primarily comprised of frozen planets, but it does have something I need: a severe weather hellscape. Now, originally, I was told I had to be out roaming the planet on my feet, hiding inside or in a ship. But here I am, sitting in my starship while the milestone keeps climbing up. So I made a note of the planet's name and general location and continued my exploration, finding myself on a floral planet with no real threat aside from malicious tier Sentinels. My reasoning for being on this planet is simple. I need resources, and lots of them. They weren't kidding around about these Sentinels, though. They followed me around half the damn planet. It was so annoying to deal with. Hell, they even chased me off the planet when I tried to fly back to the space station. Anyway, it's time to commit, so welcome back to Hell. Or Antarctica, you choose. The goal here is to knock out several achievements in one go, but before I do any of that, I'll need a base. I can keep my ship docked at the trading hub, but I've always wanted to do a cave base, and this planet gives me the perfect opportunity to do that. Mainly because I can survive down here without the cold depleting my shields in 15 seconds. I mean, unless you lose the trading hub and temp base because you forgot to mark it, but, I mean, who would do that, right? After taking a quick picture by some chodes, I was back on the hunt for a cave that I could gentrify. Of course, it wouldn't be a true home shopping experience if I didn't have to face off against a self-proclaimed pirate king. See? Shit like that is why the property value here sucks. You know what? This'll work. Just gotta wait for the storm to end. Don't worry, I marked it this time because, while I may be dumb, I'm not stupid, or something, I don't know. With a base computer placed, I named our new home something super cool and got to work trumping my way to victory. Since caves are all at an angle, there isn't much need to do anything crazy with the flooring. Instead, the goal of the cave base for me is to leave it open and only block the front and back to prevent Sentinels from entering. Pause. To help with surviving this dump of a planet, I purchased a thermal protection module and slotted it in place of the black market life support node. I also used a B tier module that I'd looted and swapped it out in place for an S tier shield, since I haven't really had to worry about fighting on the planet's surface. Both of these can be recharged with ion batteries, which can be crafted with cobalt and ferrite dust. Want to know where you can find some cobalt? It's a match made in heaven, I tell ya. The reason I need 2 of those shields is because I need to farm out some buried technology in order to, make improvements to the base, such as unlocking and placing a construction terminal. Or adding a circular room to the cave base to complete a quest, only to immediately delete it. I also placed a teleporter, which allowed me to freely access the space station, provided I was able to acquire more than 50 carbon every 24 hours. With that teleporter up and running, I popped back through and hired an overseer to manage the construction terminal inside the cave. He gave me a recipe for glass, and then asked me for some chromatic metal to build out a science terminal. I'll need to recruit an alien from a Korvax system to occupy that slot, so once again, shout out teleporter. Recruiting a scientist earned me the What Mad Universe achievement for meeting 80 unique aliens and officially checking off that limb of the achievement tree. The first act for our new scientist, teaching me about lubricant and acid and how not to confuse the two so you don't end up a eunuch. How the okay. Add that to the list of things that shouldn't be crammed into holes. Now it's time to pop back into space and contact Apollo to inform him of how awesome my base is. He explains the concept of nanite clusters to me as if I'm rolling in them, and then gives me a shield blueprint that I slapped onto my multi-tool. In order to acquire more nanites, Apollo wants me to take a page out of GTA San Andreas and start breaking into buildings. In reality, it just gave me a great excuse to mine some paraffinium for the cave base.
Warning. Sentinel drones activated.
God, this planet sucks. The Sentinels are brutal here. Regardless, I was able to escape with 145 nanites from the abandoned building, and cashed in 60 of those for a C tier upgrade that gives 1% damage boost. Why do that though, when I could just buy 2 scanner upgrades and earn a small boost for scanning fauna? Just a small percentage increase. Anyway, with that 1% damage increase, Apollo somehow feels confident with sending me to attack a secret Korvax factory in order to summon the Sentinels and learn their teleportation secrets. Of course, as soon as I tried to break down the doors, I triggered a Titanfall 2 PTSD episode and booked it for the stars. Honestly, this was actually super easy because you can just hop into your starfighter and completely fuck up the mech before landing again and finally breaking into the facility, only to walk away with a hazmat glove upgrade for my suit. Despite all that, Apollo says he got what we needed and sends me off to examine some more structures. Luckily for me, there's one just a few minutes away from the cave base. But instead of flying over there, I opted to spend a ton of resources building an Exocraft bay, landing me the Build an Exocraft achievement, meaning we're now officially more than halfway through the list at 14 out of 27. With that, let's go rip this thing through a severe ice storm. Behold, a diamond. This thing ends up teaching me about glyphs and Sentinel drone teleportation, only to throw 3 corrupted Sentinels at me that I blew up without issue. So as it turns out, that was just one of 3 glyph sets that I need to find and activate. I'm gonna say it, this is the closest I've ever felt to ripping a monster truck in MX vs ATV Untamed. God, I love this game.
Activated. Protection falling.
With all 3 glyphs activated, I'm able to trace the source. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a portal. There's some dramatic build-up about stepping into the unknown, but if I can be honest, I don't really care much about all that. I'm really just here for the journey, the experience of beating this game once and for all. So, I stepped through without thinking and popped out in Imagination Land. Thank God, instead of Christmas critters, we got bubbles. My daughter would be so excited to see this right now. I'm only stuck in the bubble realm for about 30 seconds before being teleported to the Atlas, which is just this giant floating blob. This is what Scientologists think runs the world, by the way. We don't really laugh at those people enough, do we? After walking up to the Atlas and greeting it rather politely, it tells me that it's been 84 years since that dumb bitch kicked Leo off the door, and then gives me a personality test, or something, before pooping me back out in Alaska. After questioning my existence back at my ship, I receive a distress signal and trace it over to another crashed freighter. Just kidding, it's actually a grave. Whose grave exactly? So, like, am I Artemis, or is Artemis? Is he dead? Is he like, because I'm still talking to him. I guess that's up to you to determine, until I spoil it at the end of the video. But until then, maybe Apollo knows. Or rather, Null. He's the entity that appears while trying to summon Apollo, and immediately drops the news that Artemis can be saved if I get him in a mind arc for Artemis' soul. No idea what that means, but in order to complete this mission, I'll need to mine cadmium, and to mine cadmium, I'll need a cadmium drive. The blueprint can be purchased on the Anomaly for nanites, and we can slap that onto our ship, But I kind of want to hold off on it because I'm still on the starter ship and desperately need to upgrade, which totally wasn't a terrible segue into a more distress beacon hunt montage. On the second distress beacon, I even accidentally offered my services in space battle, just trying to spam through the conversation faster.
Hostile ships approaching.
On the bright side, I did walk away with almost 400k in bounty rewards, so I'll take it. After wasting another hour or so trying and failing to hunt down a decent ship, I decided to wait around in a space station and throw a bunch of credits around at any unfortunate soul unlucky enough to land in the same docking bay as me. Until, eventually, I landed on an off-brand pod racer. With a new ship, it's time to install a Cadmium drive, so after purchasing the required materials, I slapped that bad boy onto the GN2, found a red star, and warped on over to it. According to the game, this is a rare system, which is likely why there isn't a space station here, but at least there's Cadmium. Probably just hidden under the ocean or something. It's fine, I don't want to see the ground anyway. Here we go. I will say, I love how planets have multiple biomes like that. Like this specific planet has these massive oceans with small islands to hop to, and then huge continents to explore if you don't want to go stare a megalodon in the mouth. After mining 2 cadmium nodes, I'm told to dive into the water and take on an armored clam in the hopes of acquiring some living pearls. Perfect. Using the cadmium, living pearl, and 4 metal plates, I crafted a soul engine. Now all that's left to do is find some glass and wiring looms and we'll have a mind arc in no time. Is what I would say if I didn't warp directly into another freighter being attacked. Hold on.
Technology recharge. Hostile ships defeated.
While this freighter was better by every conceivable metric, I don't have 6.5 mil just lying around, so I was forced to pass on it, opting for payment instead. Mind Arc is such a dope name for such an inconsequential item. At least now I can head back to a Holo-terminus and bring our boy back from the dead.
Weather update. Storm clearing.
God damn it. Guess we're proceeding on foot. Well, that was a whole bunch of nothing. Did I bring them back or not? What was the point of all that? So, allegedly, a copy of Artemis has been stored in the Mind Arc, and I'm supposed to bring it to Nada in the Anomaly. Why is no one congratulating me on the fact that I just cloned an alien lifeform that I've never even met before? When I bring the Mind Arc to Nada on the Anomaly, they tell me I can either upload their conscious to a machine where Artemis may live on, or I can choose to set them free, where Artemis can be at peace. Because I can't let go of anything, I opted to upload Artemis's consciousness into the machine where he is free to live on within the Anomaly. Back out in the vacuum of space, though, I try to tell Apollo about Artemis's fate and how I met the Atlas. He explains that most of the alien races view it as a god, which I detest because I'm a cool, edgy-based spaceman. My next task from Apollo is to search and activate a monolith. To do so, I need to learn the glyph sequence for this planet. See, each planet has a unique glyph sequence that you can enter to open a portal at another monolith. It's actually how a bunch of players find and recover exotic starships. There's a whole community centered around it. It's actually really cool. Activating the monolith reveals the location of a portal. It's a 22-hour walk away, but I'm just happy it's on the frozen planet because I still need to survive like 6 more hours on here to get an achievement, so time to get to walking, I guess. For said achievement, I need to survive 30 souls, or roughly 8 to 10 real-life hours on extreme survival planets. Now, over the past decade, there have been many exploits to obtain this, such as sitting in your Exocraft, hiding in a trade station, hiding in a cave, and so on. Well, in 2025, most of those have either been patched out or now freeze your progress bar. The only way that I've been able to progress the timeline is by traversing the planet out in the open. Anyway, I'm already bored of running, so welcome to the portal. There's all these glyphs that you need to charge by using various resources such as sodium, carbon, dihydrogen, and a bunch of other shit, but once that's done, you can get the code for this specific planet. Now time to find a Holo-terminus and send that info back to Apollo. After taking a screenshot of it, of course. With the glyph pattern given to Apollo, Null appears, calls me a bitch for trying to help Artemis, and then tells me to find an observatory. It's going to take about 20 minutes to get there by foot, but, as we've discussed, I've got time to kill, so I'll just see you when something interesting happens. Ladies and gentlemen, fucking nothing happened. I ran for 20 minutes straight, listened to Pardon My Take beg the Giants to put Jameis Winston in, and then when I looked up, I was at the observatory. For like 30 seconds. This observatory was ran by a Gek who set off to find a wrecked freighter and never returned. It's on another planet, which means my extreme survival grind is temporarily on hold, but I'll worry about that later. I need a log encryption key in order to access the freighter terminal, which can allegedly be found in the cargo pods littered around the wreckage. Well, that was easy. So there are 3 logs entered into the terminal, and as such, 3 keys are required. The first log talks about the quote-unquote swarms that came for every world. They started off peaceful, but ended up turning and overwhelming everyone. I'm assuming they're referencing the Sentinels, since most appear peaceful, but some planets have extremely aggressive Sentinels, and they typically swarm in waves when hunting the player. Case in point. The second log reaffirms my suspicions, referencing the Sentinels by name, and stating that they annihilated all biological life within the universe in under an hour. 54.2 minutes to be exact. The final log expresses that the Sentinels have found the freighter, and the outcome is obvious. When I bring this information back to Null, it tells me that the freighter wreck was from a parallel universe, and that there are countless places within our multiverse, with 3 exceptions. It goes on to explain that 1. The Atlas is omnipresent in all, as well as the Sentinels. The Atlas created all life, and the Sentinels defend it, searching for anomalies within that creation. It then ends with the fact that travelers, or the player specifically, are what corrupted existence of the previous universe that was previously destroyed by the Sentinels. And the best part? Null was there for it. Before leaving, Null tells me to find a Viking cartographer to better understand why the walls between universes are starting to thin. So at this point, I felt like the story was really starting to pick up, so instead of continuing it, I opted to take a short break and focus on some of the extra achievements, things that I probably wouldn't be able to knock out by continuing the story, starting with the extreme survival ones. According to Reddit, I should still be able to survive and pass the time inside of my Exocraft, but it requires a megawatt heater to survive. I was able to purchase most of these supplies, but still need uranium to finish it off. Since there isn't any uranium in this system, I was forced to warp for the first time in over 10 hours of playtime. On the bright side, not only am I able to stack up some uranium, but it also gives me an excuse to get some more steps in, knock out another warp, and continue scanning the fauna on all the new planets I came across. Over the next several hours, I hit up 3 additional planets, hunted all of the fauna on each of them, and acquired the Star Beast achievement for finding all the fauna on 7 total planets. Later on, while working towards the final fauna achievement, I unlocked Have Spacesuit Will Travel for traversing 100,000 units on foot, making the final travel achievement from the set. Anyway, I've got all that uranium just sitting in my inventory, right? Well, when I slap that into the Exocraft to finish the thermal protection module, I can now sit in the Exocraft in extreme weather, while the timer keeps climbing up, instead of stalling out. So now, we wait. 4 hours. And hours. And hours. Hell, I got so bored of waiting that after around 2 hours of playing Retro Bowl, I just started whipping around in the Exocraft and looting all the storm crystals I came across, just so it felt like I was being somewhat productive with my time. After spending several hours watching football, hunting for storm crystals, and sitting in the Exocraft, I was finally hit with the Stranger in a Strange Land achievement, meaning I've still got another 3 hours to go to hit the Sentinel. I'll see you in a bit.
Storm clearing.
I started at around 1 p.m. Currently, it is 10:42 p.m. as I'm writing this. The minute ticker is moving at 1 minute per real-life second, so 1 soul would equate to 900 minutes in-game, or about 15 minutes in real life. So, to date, at about 34.5 thousand minutes in-game, that translates to about 9.5 hours if my math is correct. At 60 in-game minutes per real-life minute, I've been at this for just under 10 hours. About half of that time has been spent active, and of that active time, I can only hunt for storm crystals during severe weather storms. Now, during said storms, I've been able to accumulate 290 storm crystals, which will sell for around 61 million credits. And I still have another hour or so of hunting to get in.
Extreme temperature detected.
Okay, I'm at just over 38k, and I still need to hit 43.2 minutes for the final star. With some basic math, 900 in-game minutes would be around 15 real-life minutes, so I've got just under 90 minutes to go. I've been going at this since 1 p.m., and as of this sentence, it is 11:46 p.m., so I guess I'll see you in the morning. Thank God. The Sentinel has a 1.8% completion rate, and I 100% see the reasoning as to why. It wasn't all for nothing, though. I was able to turn those 10 hours into approximately 90 million credits after selling all of those storm crystals. No idea what I'm going to do with all that cash, but I'm sure I'll find something to burn it on. Next up, I've got a few achievements left that are more time-based than anything, such as warping to 75 systems, or scanning all the fauna on planets. So, as a way to keep myself sane, I purchased 20 planetary maps and started hunting for distress signals to add some more starships to my collection. That way, I can just go to whatever planet has the distress signal, and while I'm there, I can scan all the fauna, then warp to a new star system, and repeat indefinitely.
Units received. Units received.
On top of that, it also gives me the excuse to talk to everyone in the space stations to continue on my Duolingo courses. Told you I'd find something to spend that money on.
Units received. Units received. Units received. Now protection falling.
It took 3 warps in total for me to hit the final Knowledge Stone and unlock the Citizen of the Galaxy achievement for learning 150 words, something that 19.1% of the player base has achieved at the time of recording. One warp later, and I unlocked the Galapagos achievement for finding all fauna on 10 separate planets. Another incredibly rare achievement that only 2.9% of the player base has obtained. At this point, I'm down to 7 achievements remaining, 2 of which require me to reach the center of the galaxy. So really, all I have left is warping to different galaxies and blowing up ships.
Thermal protection. Hostile ships approaching.
Speaking of blowing up ships, gotta love warping into a freighter currently being raided by pirates. Time to get to work.
Technology recharge. Hostile ships defeated. Alert. Navigational data received.
Oh, there's 10 more checked off the list. So after finding an A-class starship, I jumped back up into space to find a pirate ship near a freighter. The only problem was that I accidentally shot up the freighter while trying to cash in on the bounty, pissing off the locals in the process. But it wasn't all bad though, considering it allowed me to shoot down one more ship, earning me the Pattern for Conquest achievement. Back to adding ships to my collection though. After a few more warps, I successfully fought off some more pirates and put myself in a position to knock out several achievements at once, which brings me to the moment that I think a lot of you have been waiting for. Just kidding, we don't have time for building corvettes in this video, but I've got the next best thing. If I read this correctly, the best way to obtain pieces of ships is to scrap them in a space station. Hence why I just spent the last 2 hours warping and collecting anything I could find. In order to get any of these to said space station though, I'll need to repair them, or at least the thrusters. They don't need to be usable, they just need to get off the ground. They're like the $300 used cars of No Man's Sky. They look like shit, but we all know someone who swears by them. So, with most of the ships repaired, I headed back to the space station and got to work disassembling all of them for spare parts. When you choose to disassemble a ship, you can choose to salvage either the cockpit, wings, or engine, so I just went with whatever I thought looked the coolest on each starfighter, leaving me with a variety of components to choose from. Around 15 hours of playtime ago, like way back before I even sat in the Exocraft for an entire day, I spent over 10,000 nanites to purchase an S-tier reactor core, because I'm built different and totally not a trust fund kid. Okay, not the greatest build, especially compared to some of the builds I've seen online already, but you know what? It's mine. For real though, I love everything about ship building in this game, and it makes me want to put off this video indefinitely to keep hunting for more parts to build something absolutely insane. But that'll be a different video for another time. Until then, it's back to warping around and blowing shit up. After buying a ton of upgrades for the new ship, of course.
Item received. Item received. Technology installed. Technology installed. Technology installed.
What's a new ship without a name, though? Am I right? One of the remaining achievements is to warp to a friend's base. So I thought, hey, you can warp to player bases within the anomaly. Those should work. And while some of these bases look downright incredible, they don't count towards the achievement. So, instead of fucking around with that some more, I popped into my Discord for my biannual post and asked players to send me their bases to warp to. While we wait, check out this dope-ass exotic fish starship sitting in the anomaly. What a flex. With no luck from the YouTube members in my Discord, I tried my hand at asking random people within the anomaly. That went about as well as you would expect it to go. Thanks, Overlord Traveler. Now, while I was waiting for a response from the friends I pretend to have, I kept myself busy by purchasing a bunch of resources needed to install new modules on the shaft. Thankfully, there's no shortage of shit to get done, so while I wait for someone to answer the call, it's time to warp. So far, I've managed to successfully warp 22 times. I need to hit 40 for the longest voyage achievement, and 75 for a Space Odyssey. And if you're sitting there like, hey, that sounds familiar, it's the movie that ends with the flying Planned Parenthood ad in space. You know what I'm talking about. To prepare for the epic warp grind, I crafted a metric shit ton of antimatter and warp cells until I felt like I had a sufficient amount. You know the drill. I'll see you when something interesting happens. Well, that was fast. I gotta say, this is a first. I don't think I've ever seen a Dreadnought before in this game, let alone one attacking civilian ships. But you know what? That sounds fucking awesome, and it gives me the perfect excuse to try out some new weapons on the shaft. So, the civilian fleet is essentially useless. They have a few fighters, but for the most part, the Dreadnought just kinda skull-fucked it. On top of its massive lasers, the frigates will also fire volleys of missiles that you need to destroy, on top of dealing with the dozens of fighters roaming the area. The one thing I just couldn't figure out for the life of me was how to deactivate the Dreadnought shields. I was told to fly beneath it to damage the shield arrays, but everything I shot at did 0 damage. Normally, I'd stop what I was doing, hunt around on YouTube or Reddit for a bit, and revisit. But I thought it'd be more rewarding to successfully defeat a Dreadnought in my first attempt. In reality, all I did was cost thousands of aliens their lives before watching the entire enemy fleet warp to a new star system. Thankfully, Jason Plays has a walkthrough showing you exactly how to destroy these things, and evidently, you can just fly inside of their shields and destroy the engines. There's also these massive trenches you fly through to destroy the shield generators, like you're ripping through the goddamn Death Star. Now all I want to do is find another to fight. Also, fun fact, you can divert power to different parts of your ship. I've logged hundreds of hours in this game across multiple platforms over the last 9 years, and had no clue that existed, so I'm assuming at least a few of you don't as well. Anyway, back to warping. There is something to be said about how beautiful No Man's Sky is, and maybe I'm not the person to talk about it because I don't have the vocabulary to, like, articulate my emotions in the correct format, especially after naming my starship after a giant dick. But just know, I'm capable of having these emotions too. This game is beautiful, and I'm tired of pretending like it's not. Also, shout out vile anomalies. No idea what they are or what they do, but they exist. A few more warps into the journey, I came across an A-class multi-tool at a space station and subsequently purchased it for around 4 million credits. Four more warps and I almost crashed into the Atlas apparating in front of me. Naturally, instead of avoiding it, I stopped by to say hi to God again. This time, when I speak to it though, it wants me to follow its path, and I have no idea what that means. Luckily for me though, this game is like a decade old, and some other poor sap on a permadeath character has probably already experienced this for me. The overwhelming conclusion is essentially, do the Artemis quest first, and then do Atlas. The wiki told me that the Atlas questline serves to spread more lore about the universe and all that, but like I said over an hour ago, I'm much more interested in exploration and achievement hunting instead of getting a Jehovah's Witness testimony in blob form. A few more warps and all my fuel later, and I unlocked the longest voyage achievement for warping to 40 star systems. Only 35 more to go, after spending an hour restocking on fuel. Now that's a shaft. We gotta change the ship name now. God damn it. This was kind of the vibe for the next several hours. I would warp like 5 to 10 times, run out of fuel, spend 20 minutes farming materials to craft like 20 more warp cells, and the cycle would repeat. Until finally, after like 3 fucking hours, I managed to obtain the A Space Odyssey achievement, bringing me up to 23 completed achievements. This also means that the other grind-based achievement is to blow up a bunch of ships. 80, to be exact, and I'm already 75% of the way there. To help speed up the process, I opted to grab some quests to hunt low-leveled pirates, but even that's a bit misleading due to the increased difficulty of permadeath, coupled with the fact that reinforcements like to show up after the fights wrap up. That being said, space combat is so satisfying and addicting to play. And when you toss in the high stakes that permadeath brings, it just makes the battles that much more exhilarating to me.
Technology recharge.
By the time the fight had wrapped up, the shaft had taken a substantial beating, but we were still alive, and 8 kills closer to wrapping up the challenge. After the first fight though, I took a few minutes down to the nearby planet making some necessary repairs before warping to a familiar star system and picking up yet another mission to go fuck up some pirates.
Critical damage taken. Technology recharge.
Only needing 4 more kills, I opted to go with a different approach and bait the Sentinels into a 1-star wanted level. Then, hopped back in my ship and jumped into space. This was much easier than dealing with pirates, since the lower leveled Sentinels are obviously much weaker than an A-class fighter. They generally have less weaponry to fight back with, allowing me to just dump my kit onto them before they even position themselves correctly. It's also much easier to fight one ship at a time compared to 3 or 10 starfighters that a group of pirates might send after you. Which is pretty obvious, but not something you really consider until you have to go up against it. Not to mention, you also get this grace period in between waves of Sentinels that will allow you to retreat and repair as needed before jumping back into the fight.
Shield down. Technology recharge.
Unfortunately for me, the Sentinel attack ships bugged out after 2 attempts, leaving me to pick up a final pirate contract to finish off another achievement. Upon earning the Forever War achievement, I dipped back to the space station where I received a message from a longtime friend that I actually used to play the shit out of this game with back in like 2017. Well, sadly, all of those worlds are on normal or survival mode, and No Man's Sky is gated to where you need to be on the same game mode as your friends. So he actually ended up having to do a new permadeath start just for me to be able to join his world to unlock the Reunion achievement. So shout out Big Red for spending an hour going through all of the starter missions just to place a base computer for me. He's the true hero of this journey. And thanks to Big Red, I'm down to the final 2 achievements in the game. Reach the center of the galaxy in survival mode, and reach the center of the galaxy in permadeath mode. Thankfully, I only have to do this once, as reaching the center while in permadeath mode earns both achievements. Now there are a shit ton of ways to go about this. I can simply brute force it and warp 700,000 light years to the center. I can try my luck at black holes and hope I pop out closer to the end. I can phone a friend, have them do all the work for me, and then teleport to their base and take the final steps myself. Or, I could complete the main storyline, which is the option I'm going to go with for this video. Speaking of the main storyline though, it's been about 15 hours of playtime since I've even looked in that direction. So as a quick recap, the Atlas is a god. Maybe. At least that's how other aliens view it. Null has dealt with it before and in the past, and the folks on the anomaly avoid it and actively hide from it. Artemis's consciousness is retained inside the anomaly, and we have no idea whatever happened to Apollo after activating that portal with the glyphs. Artemis and Apollo appear to be travelers just like the player, but it's unconfirmed as we haven't been able to talk to them in some time. Currently, we've been tasked with finding cartographers aboard space stations to continue studying just how the universe has ended up in the state that it's in, starting with a Viking cartographer. Now, in true Viking fashion, the cartographer spits on me, calls me a slur, and then asks me to retrieve an artifact for him as a way to prove myself. This was way easier than it seemed. I think what was supposed to happen is I retrieve the artifact and then immediately trigger a 3-star wanted level with the Sentinels, which on its own can be pretty difficult to take down if you're not prepared. But what ended up happening was I dashed away, the wanted level instantly dropped to 1, which allowed me to wait a measly 15 seconds before looping back to my ship and escaping unharmed. This is entirely unrelated, but the pulse engine flight gives me the same satisfaction that I get from sailing in Valheim. I've been sitting here for legit like 30 hours trying to figure out what it was, but I get the same dopamine hit in both, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just the views or the camera angles, but I love it. Just give me more. Give me more. Anyway, back aboard the space station, I provide the Viking cartographer with the artifact and get a small lore dump about the Atlas. When I mention 16, I invoke an evolutionary PTSD episode that leaves them completely lobotomized, so whoops. Up next, we have a Korvax cartographer. They give me some vague bullshit about retrieving non-existent data from a structure in between worlds, or something, I don't know, I'm not high enough for this. So instead, I just followed the directions on screen to the fragmented memory. This was a bit unique though, mainly because it was in the middle of a fucking ocean. After surviving being hypnotized by Leela, I broke into the underwater facility and retrieved the divergence cube from the terminal. This one's a bit of an acid trip, but if I understand it remotely correctly, the Korvax cartographer just told me that nanite clusters are actually Sentinels and not, in fact, currency. Weird. The final line here did hit a bit deep, and it's one that I actually really gravitated with as both a metaphor for the game and life itself. Existence is beautiful if you let it be. Life is not a question. There does not need to be an answer. Finally, we have the Gek cartographer. They want me to complete 2 contracts for them first, so I walked my happy ass over to the missions table and picked up 2 contracts to kill Sentinels and animals. Picked a real shit planet for this though, considering the animals just like the fucking plants, but whatever. Alright, that took like 30 seconds. Sweet. Back to the Gek. So as it turns out, I need to complete Gek-specific missions, not just any missions on the board. So in this case, I have to raid a planetary depot. That's just great. Surely this won't end horribly. Oh, there it is. Odds I live.
Thermal protection fully. Thermal protection fully.
Well, that was stupid easy. The second mission was somehow even easier than blowing up the depot. All I need to do is warp to a nearby system and scan some bushes. That can wait until after the freighter defense though. Never pass on a chance to blow some shit up. God, I love space battles. I feel like I've said that a lot this video, but I need to keep reaffirming it. Space battles in this game are peak. Now it's back to, what, scanning plants? Fine.
Units received. Warning. Sentinel Dreadnought activated. Units received. Units received. Units received.
Once both missions are completed and turned in, I'm free to talk to the Gek cartographer who gives me the old hot Cosby and unconsensually enters my soul to explain to me that the Gek became Korvax or something like that via a revolution. Null verifies most of the info that I've learned and tells me that they were born to travel, see the worlds, and catalog everything from creators, planets, to the skies. When it's finally returned to the Atlas, Null was shown universe upon universe showing others just like it, repeating the exact same steps, indicating that Null was not special or unique, but instead, just another drone for the Atlas. Null continues, saying that the Atlas no longer speaks to it, and has instead chosen me to continue on. Once Null disconnects from the Terminus though, Apollo appears and tells me he's finally made it through the portal. There's only one problem. When we exchange coordinates, the data comes back that we're both standing in the same Holo-terminus. We both simultaneously receive a distress beacon from these same coordinates, so the two of us agree to head over to it and hopefully meet up. Upon arriving at the distress beacon, I find no one but an unknown signal log. From my understanding, it's someone talking to Atlas about resetting it like Atlas is a fucking router. After finishing the log, I'm given coordinates to a portal in the distance, so I hopped back on the shaft and began making my way over. I charged most of the glyphs, but was out of several key resources, prompting me to spend a few minutes frantically searching the planet for anything useful. Mainly sodium, because apparently the Gex are hoarding all the fucking salt around here. With the glyphs fully charged, I take a moment to contemplate my life and step into the portal, ready for whatever fate awaits me on the other side.
Danger. Low oxygen levels. Thermal protection falling. Having been saved by the Atlas, I make my way back to the ship, now in a new system, on a foreign planet. As I make it back, I'm told that the Atlas will cease to exist in 16 minutes. But what does that mean? If time is a life form construct, how long is 16 minutes actually? That's the question we're left with. Trying to warn my friends, I fly to a nearby Holo-terminus, only to find that the network has been destroyed. Toxic protection falling.
Atlas isn't a god, it's a machine running infinite simulations that are about to expire in 16 minutes. And it seems the only way to stop that from happening is to warp to the galactic core, reach the final Atlas interface, and reset everything. I tried bringing this info to Nada and Polo, but they're already aware of it and just didn't tell me for some reason. Jackasses. As a final mission, I chose to reset the Atlas and start the simulation all over again.
I now need to warp 16 times. With each warp, I acquire a glyph that'll be used to teleport me to the final interface. And had I known this at the start, I would have held off on spending a ton of time just warping around for the 75 system achievement. But that's the past. So, I continue warping, collecting glyphs, wondering what this was all for. On my third warp, I receive a message from Apollo, who explains how he thinks that the portals are gateways to different dimensions, instead of places within the same universe. That's why me and Apollo could be standing in the exact same spot, but not see each other. Just like those two dudes who bought No Man's Sky and found the same planet on release day. Hold on, is that what this is in reference to? Did they create an entire story to retcon the fact that the game was single player only on release? Absolutely genius, if true. There is a cute ending here where I tell Apollo my plans to head to the center of the universe to reset the Atlas, and he jokingly says that he'll race me there. It's a nice way to end him, and at least for me, I did feel an odd connection to him over the course of the playthrough, more so than I ever did with Artemis. Speaking of Artemis, he pops in during the 6th warp, but all I was able to ascertain from the conversation is that the death of the universe doesn't begin in 16 minutes. It began ages ago. The static that I've been hearing isn't interference, it's the simulation falling apart around me. On my 9th warp, Noah gives me a call and tries to stop me from reaching the center by repeating, "You can't do this to us." It does reveal that it's also done what I'm about to do and reset everything, but it'll mean that he's lived for nothing, which is a sad price to pay, but also, fuck that guy. Finally, after 16 warps, I've managed to reach the final interface portal. Hello old friend. In my roughly 50 hours of game time spent on this permadeath run, I've had to exclude dozens of incredibly interesting side quests, such as building a planetary settlement, exploring the depths of the oceans, collecting fossils, expanding my freighter and fleet, building a squadron to roam the skies with, expanding my base with different aliens and artifacts. There are hundreds upon hundreds of missions and extra content arcs that I've had to cut out from this video simply to stay within the confines of completing all of the achievements. Each of them in-depth enough to spend dozens of hours on alone. In my quest to get through the game with a specific objective, I've missed out on countless stories and experiences that I'll never see play out. At face value, No Man's Sky is a space exploration game with enough content to keep you happy until your final breath. But if you peel back the curtains a little bit and really try to follow the story, you'll find that there's a rather pure metaphor for life hidden inside. The search for meaning should be secondary. There simply is and isn't. And if you spend all of your time focusing on trying to find out the meaning of life, you'll miss out on everything that makes your existence worth experiencing. With that, I appreciate you all, go call a loved one, and to quote an absolutely fantastic game, existence is beautiful if you let it be. Life is not a question. There does not need to be an answer. Cheers.